Okay, so listen up here, guys. I'm going to talk quickly about this so you can have as much time as possible to work on it. You will have class period today and tomorrow to work on this research project. It's going to be a lot like the toxin project, except there's not any societal component to it. You don't have to find the societal effects of a Douglas fir. Okay? There probably aren't any. Right? But what we are going to be looking at in this research project is you choose the plant species. Okay? You can choose whatever plant species you want. We want to look at it from the standpoint of adaptations to its environment in regards to the things we've talked about. That would be growth patterns like tropisms, okay, how it transports water, maybe conserves water, okay, anything that's an adaptation to its environment, maybe a way that it keeps itself, protects itself from predators. All right, so maybe it's hard to eat, or it's poisonous, or smells really bad, or how does it make sure that it gets pollinated if it's a flowering plant? Okay, does it make sweet nectar that attracts birds and bees to the flowers and things like that? Those are all adaptations that a plant uses to survive in its environment. Right, so we want to look at it mainly from that perspective and talk about as many of the things we've talked about in terms of plants, so transport, growth, and development as possible. Okay, so in this project you are to examine the growth patterns and adaptations of a plant of your choice. That should include a description of the plant's native environment, okay, and the conditions it must deal with. Okay, so if you're talking about a plant that grows in our area, it has to deal with changing seasons, okay, the fact that it's probably going to have to be dormant for 6 to 8 months of the year, stuff like that. Okay, this should lead to an extremely detailed description of how your plant grows, adapts, and deals with those conditions. Look at any tropisms it may employ, how it distributes its roots, so you could talk about whether it has a taproot system or a fibrous root system, okay? How it distributes its stem, does it grow like one big central stem or does it branch off right away, okay? How it competes with other plants in its environment, does it try to shade them out, does it secrete toxins into the soil, okay? Things like that. If your plant has any special adaptations that prevent it from being eaten, damaged, or just plain survive in its environment, those should be described as well. Thorns on a cactus would be an example of that. Okay, that kind of makes sense? All right, so project outline. In your project, you need to report on the structure of your plant. Is it a flowering plant, a conifer, moss, etc.? Make sure, guys, this is a plant. Right? I have had people in the past on this project, and they hand in this beautiful research project about shiitake mushrooms, which are a fungus. They're not a plant. And so they miss all the stuff about plant growth, photosynthesis, adaptations, tropisms, because fungi don't do that. Okay? There was absolutely nothing wrong with the report about shiitake mushrooms except that it was a fungus and not a plant. So make sure that your species is, in fact, a terrestrial plant. That is a plant that grows on land, no aquatic plants. They work a lot differently. Okay? All right. So, is it a flowering plant, a conifer, a moss? Okay, what are its specific needs in terms of light, soil, water, nutrients? Okay, and that's kind of part of you describing the environment in which it lives. Okay, describe the conditions your plant must be able to survive and how it does this. Again, conditions it lives in. Use your knowledge of plant structure, growth, and development to illustrate how your plant species is unique and adaptive. In terms of growth and development, okay, talk about its life cycle. Be specific. How long does it take? Does it sprout? Is it an annual or a perennial? Does it make fruit, or how does it make its seeds? Things like that. Okay, would be important for that. Okay, environmental influences. Okay, describe the conditions the plant's environment can affect its tissues. Are there parasites that can infect it? How it resists or fights them. Is fire, flooding, drought, freezing, etc. a concern? And how does your plant species adapt to survive and reproduce after such events? Okay, your project must contain pictures and or diagrams. I'll get bored if it doesn't. And you don't want me to get bored. Because if we get bored, your mark will go down. So, thrill me. Okay, make there lots of pictures in there. Okay, make sure they go along with what you're talking about. That's the expectations for the report. Now, one of the places where people lost marks on the toxin project was in citing their references. Okay, you need to cite your references, even for the pictures you use. Okay, that's still somebody else's creation, and you need to cite them as a source. Right, so make sure that you are using the format that I showed you before. Okay, same thing here. Right, we want the author or photographer's name. Okay, the date that it was posted. Okay, the title of it, picture, or if the picture doesn't have a title, you can just say picture of. Okay. Then the name of the website, okay, and then the URL, and the day you accessed it. Okay? A lot of people forgot this one, oddly enough. Okay, the access date. That's like the easiest one because you know it's today. Okay, all right. So remember, that's the format it should be in. Do your best to find all of that information. Okay, you should have, like quite a few references. I would say 5 at the bare minimum here. Okay, would be what you need. Now, a note on plagiarism. When you're doing a strictly research project where you don't really have to synthesize a whole lot of your own ideas, it's very easy to get caught up in, oh yeah, this is really good, copy paste, and you don't really change very much. I'm going to know if you do that. Okay, so please don't. You're not going to learn anything from that, and it's going to result in you getting a 0. I only say that because I've had a number of cases of it lately. Okay, in a few of my other classes, it's unpleasant. Okay, you don't want to have to take your marks away and give you a 0. It sucks. Okay, so make it your own. All right, planning. Another thing people forgot. Okay. A lot of people lost marks on the Toxin project if they did not include planning. I want to see the same 2 things, okay, on this one for planning. So I want to see either a thought web or an outline as evidence of your planning, and then a timeline. So everybody has to have a timeline. Okay, tell me when you worked on it, what you did. Okay, don't just say like, October 31st researched. November 15th handed it in. Okay, like you gotta have a little more detail than that. So tell me when you worked on it. Everyone has a timeline, and then whatever works for you, thought web or outline. Okay, but you gotta have one or the other of those as you're planning. They're not hard to do. Okay, but make sure that you include them so you don't lose the marks for those, because it's 5 marks out of 25. All right, so format can either be in a Google Doc or in a Google Slides presentation. I've included both types of file. If you use only one of them, please delete the other. Okay? Otherwise, I end up looking through both trying to find your work and I get confused. Okay? Now, the scope of this project, it'll require some work, obviously, beyond the class. This is 3 class periods, only getting 2. Okay? Essays should be between 1,200 and 1,600 words, so about the same as you did last time. Okay, remember I said the minimum was 800 to 1,000, but you weren't going to do very well if that's all you had. Okay, 1,200 to 1,600 words, you're going to do a pretty good job of this. Okay, that's 1.5 pages to 2 pages in Google Docs with the default settings. Right, so it's not a huge amount of stuff. Okay, and your project will be evaluated in 5 categories. Okay, the same 5 as before. Initiating, planning, 5 marks. So that's your thought web, your timeline, okay, or your outline in your timeline. Analysis and interpretation, this is all of the stuff you research and tell me about the adaptations of your plant. Communication is how well you communicate those ideas to me. People lost marks in this one the last time because their toxin projects were really disjointed. Okay? They just jumped from one idea to another without much tying them together. Right? So if you're talking about how a plant grows, you could start it and have one slide on the germination process, and then tie that into, once it germinates to this stage, then it's going to do this. Tie them together somehow, just so it doesn't seem like I'm jumping all over the place when I read it. Okay, and it also includes things like flow. Well, that's kind of that same thing, but word choice and stuff like that. Research and investigation, so your references cited, that's 5 marks. And then overall, okay, what impression does your project make? So when you hand it in, it's got a nice title slide, and it's got a good opening paragraph, or it seems to make sense. It looks like you put effort into it. It's not 5 different fonts as I go along. Okay, like things like that really make a poor impression. Okay, make it look like it's all one kind of unified piece. Okay, this would also include spelling. Okay, nothing says I don't give a damn more than a bunch of spelling mistakes that are clearly underlined by the spell checker and left that way. Okay, it just screams I didn't care enough to bother. Okay, don't leave spelling mistakes in there. Yeah, so that's what we're looking at. Okay, to be out of 25 marks, due 2 weeks from tomorrow. Okay, so you got lots of time to work on it, because obviously you got a unit exam next week, or you get 2 class periods here this week to work on it as well. Okay, questions? Well, what are you waiting for then? Get to work.